Why did the request of Adonijah ultimately lead to his death? This is the question that we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of 1 Kings on walking through the Bible. Today we're going to be discussing 1 Kings chapter 2, verses 13 to 25. But before we do that, let's read the passage. If you have a Bible with you, turn to 1 Kings chapter 2, verse 13. But if you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So 1 Kings chapter 2, beginning at verse 13. Now Adonijah, the son of Haggith, came to Bathsheba, the mother of Solomon. So she said, "Do you come peaceably?" And he said, "Peaceably." Moreover, he said, "I have something to say to you." And she said, "Say it." Then he said, "You know that the kingdom was mine, and all Israel had set their expectations on me that I should reign. However, the kingdom has not been turned over, and has become my brother's, for it was his from the Lord. Now I ask one petition of you. Do not deny me." And she said to him, "Say it." Then he said, "Please speak to King Solomon, for he will not refuse you, that he may give me Abishag the Shunammite as wife." So Bathsheba said, "Very well, I will speak for you to the king." Bathsheba therefore went to King Solomon to speak to him for Adonijah. And the king rose up to meet her and bowed down to her and sat down on his throne, and had a throne set for the king's mother. So she sat at his right hand. Then she said, "I desire one small petition of you. Do not refuse me." And the king said to her, "Ask it, my mother, for I will not refuse you." So he said, "Let Abishag the Shunammite be given to Adonijah your brother as wife." And King Solomon answered and said to his mother, Now why do you ask Abishag the Shunammite for Adonijah? Ask for him the kingdom also, for he is my older brother, for him, and for Abiathar the priest, and for Joab the son of Zeruiah. Then King Solomon swore by the Lord, saying, "May God do so to me, and more also, if Adonijah has not spoken this word against his own life. Now therefore, as the Lord lives, who has confirmed me and set me on the throne of David my father, and who has established a house for me, and has promised Adonijah shall be put to death today." So King Solomon sent by the hand of Benaiah the son of Jehoiada, and he struck him down, and he died. David, the man after God's own heart that we first met back in 1 Samuel 16, has now died, having reigned over Israel for 40 years. If our timeline is correct, we have now come to about 970 BC, or about 430 years since Israel settled in the Promised Land. Before David's death, Adonijah, David's eldest remaining son, tried to take the throne, but God desired that Solomon become king, and so that's exactly what happened. But in chapter 1, Adonijah pleaded for mercy from Solomon, which was granted on the condition that Adonijah faithfully follow the king, which brings us to the events of chapter 2, verses 13 to 25. On its face, Adonijah's request of Bathsheba seems like an innocuous one. He wanted to take Abishag the Shunammite as a wife. Recall from chapter 1 that Abishag was David's nurse and was intended to be David's concubine, but she never became such, as she never had sex with him. With this being the case, Adonijah was not asking to be allowed to engage in an incestuous relationship, breaking the command found in Leviticus 18, verse 8. Adonijah might have been in love with the woman and simply wanted to take her as a wife. But his words to Bathsheba and Solomon's reaction to the request show us that there was more to Adonijah's request than meets the eye at first glance. Notice how Adonijah, though he says he came peaceably, reminded Bathsheba that he should have been the rightful king of Israel because he is the oldest son of David, and that Solomon was only king because it was of the Lord. This shows us two things. First, Adonijah knew of the fact that Solomon was to be king before he tried to usurp the throne. And two, Adonijah was still bitter of the fact that he wasn't king. So in coming to Bathsheba to ask for Abishag, Adonijah had ulterior motives. And to us in the 21st century, those motives might not be entirely obvious, but to Solomon they were. Adonijah was after the kingdom. How so? Because the harem of the previous king was inherited by the next king. We saw this with Ishbosheth and then David upon the death of Saul. And we saw this when Absalom briefly overthrew David, deciding to go into David's concubines and have sex with them. Thus, to take the concubine of the previous king could lead people to believe that you were the rightful king. Now, of course, this practice concerning the harem was wrong, but that's what kings did, with the Bible simply commenting on this fact. That is why Solomon, when Bathsheba asked for this on behalf of Adonijah, accused Bathsheba of also asking for the kingdom on Adonijah's behalf. Solomon is relaying to his mother that she is being played by Adonijah in order to seize the throne by turning the hearts of the people towards him and away from Solomon. You see, Bathsheba, as the queen's mother, held a powerful position in the kingdom, a position that could influence the king's decisions, which is why Adonijah went to her instead of directly to his brother. Bathsheba hadn't held this position long, which obviously made her susceptible to this kind of trickery. Solomon, though, wasn't going to accept any type of treachery, unlike David his father had in his later reign, and so he ordered Benaiah to kill Adonijah. Solomon wasn't breaking his oath because Adonijah had broken the conditions that Solomon gave him to survive, and thus his treachery deserved the death penalty. And so, with the death of Adonijah, Solomon's throne was firmly established, and his willingness to punish wrongdoing clearly seen among the people, thus tamping down anyone else of attempting to take the throne from Solomon. We'll continue with the early judgments of Solomon, the Lord willing, in the next lesson. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of 1 Kings chapter 2, verses 26 to 35, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.